And welcome back. I'm now joined by the very talented author Kerry Hudson, who's come with her debut novel. Tony Hogan bought me an ice cream float before he stole my mom. I just have to say the title is incredibly unique. It totally stands out.
Thank you. It's very long as well.
What made you decide to come up with that title?
It's the last of sort of 4 incarnations actually. So it began as the Dolchek Kid. When I was writing it, that was their working title.
What was it? The Dolchek Kid?
The Dolchek Kid.
Oh, okay.
And then because, as you probably know, it's full of food as well. Food's quite a big part of the story.
Yeah.
So I was going to call it the Council Estate Cookbook, and then I was like, that's silly. People won't know what it is. And the one that I sent it to publishers with was Echoes of Small Fires, but my publisher said that it was too full of swearing for such a literary title.
It would have given a different feel, whereas I feel with this, it actually really does sum up what it's about.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, it's really memorable. So people are like, oh, you know, the one about the ice cream float. And so
the short version is Tony Hogan,
Tony
isn't
Hogan,
it?
and we can use that so that it's not, you know, a 2-hour interview just with the title all the time.
Yeah, and Tony Hogan's obviously a key character in this. Obviously influences the main character, Janie. Could you tell us a little bit about her?
Yeah, of course. So Tony Hogan bought me an ice cream float before he stole my ma is the story of Janie Ryan. So it follows her from the very moment she is born, right the way through to her 16th birthday. And it's really about her trying to make her way in the world. So the world that she's from is council estates and bed and breakfasts, and about how she interacts with her poor mum, who's doing her best but doesn't always quite make the right decisions. How she tries to protect her little sister, and about really, I mean, the crux of it is whether or not she will repeat the cycle or whether she'll manage to fight her way out of it. And that's what she's doing all the way through the book, really. She's fighting and fighting and fighting against all of the circumstances that she's facing.
You really do feel like she has that fight, because what you did so uniquely was you had the character talking from the womb. So you can see that her fate is already sealed with the fact that when she comes out, she's going to be in this crazy world with the mother that's trying her best but clearly has problems.
Yeah.
And all the other characters that come into play, you know, through the mother, the boyfriend, you know, the relationship she has with her own mother and the brother and all those things.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to do it from the womb, actually, the talking from... That was a very different thing.
Yeah, and people have been quite interested in that, but that just kind of made sense to me. I suppose I was really interested in that journey, and had I known that actually it's quite challenging to take a story and a character from the moment they're born right through their 16th birthday, I might have rethought it. But I love the idea that she's bursting into this family.
Yes,
you know, so
that's what you
she's
feel,
literally, you know, she's bursting into this world, and then she's like, just like the reader is, oh my God, where am I? Who are these people? And what sort of journey are they going to take me on?
And you know that she's a total dependent, and she just has to try and make the best of what she's got.
Yeah.
She tries to pull herself through it. Her mother is enthusiastic, you know, to try and, you know, keep moving on, making things better, but she just falls for these men. Yeah. Tony Hogan, one of them, and then Doug, who's sort of this kind of useless, pathetic character.
It's interesting. But I think, I mean, I suppose that thing for Iris is that she never stops until like the final sections of the book. Yeah. She is always looking to make things better. You know, she really loves her kids. She loves Janie, and she really loves Tiny. And I think luckily Janie always knows that, and that's one of the sort of saving graces, that closeness that they have. And yeah, her falling for the men, I think it's another sort of harebrained scheme, and obviously with Tony Hogan that goes violently wrong, and with Doug she's really let down because effectively he becomes like another person she's got to look after and corral, and you know, another thing to fight against, really.
And is it right that it's actually partly autobiographical as well?
It is indeed.
Wow.
So I grew up in Janie's world, really. I'm the same age that Janie would be now. So Janie's
the 80s.
Yes, yeah. 80s and 90s child.
I recognise the references too.
Yeah,
being an 80s child.
It's funny.
Well.
Women around sort of, you know, of that age have just been like, oh my God, do you remember, you know, waffles and Finder's pancakes and things? So I use the chronology of my own life as the sort of skeleton for the book. So I was born in Aberdeen, and I've lived in all of the places that Janie lived until she gets to Great Yarmouth, where the book finishes, and lived in the same council estates and bed and breakfasts. I also grew up in a single parent family with a younger sister. And then I suppose the thing that makes it not memoir and a novel is that then it's about finding all of the fiction to put onto that sort of skeleton of my own sort of chronology.
And you write it so so vividly, so with such rawness that you can actually really feel like, you know, the environments that she's having to like live through. I mean, you're like, oh my gosh, Janie, please get through this. And you really vie for them all the way through. You want Iris to just, you know, really make something of herself as well. Like, you want them both to. And Tiny.
Yeah, poor Tiny, who, you know, is so young, I think, that she's just swept along all the time.
And you can see that she's already starting the same journey as Janie. You can see that happening, the same thing. But maybe the mother at that point's a bit mellower, so maybe she'll have a different experience. But obviously Janie had a mother that was a lot younger and was obviously going through a lot of those struggles.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And you wrote it you didn't even write it anywhere near here, you wrote it in Vietnam, so it's amazing that you could write with such vividness. What was that like?
It makes perfect sense to write a book about Glaswegian council estates in Vietnam, of course.
Totally.
I went there because I wanted a big period of time to write, and I was interested in the place anyway, and I didn't have a lot of money, and Vietnam was obviously a lot cheaper to live in for 6 months than London while not working. But it was actually amazing for me because I was so dislocated from anything that might have been in the book. You know, such a different culture that I couldn't, you know, if I wanted to write a fish and chip shop, I didn't just go down the road and, you know, buy a fish and chip supper. I literally had to conjure that every single detail fresh from my memory. So that, I think, was actually really helpful. And a lot of it, I think, was about them being really honest about what I was remembering and capturing that really accurately.
That's what you've done so well, is write it with such honesty. And I love the transition because you really grow up with Janie as well, because obviously the womb, then you see her go through her younger years, her formative years, and then her as a teen, and that's the point where you're like, oh no, she's starting to repeat the same things, the things she's doing, and you can see her going in that direction. And obviously the ending tells you, you know, gives you the hope.
Yeah.
But how was that writing that bit?
Funnily enough, the final scenes were the hardest for me, and I think that's because that's where Janie is sort of, you know, she's becoming an adult, so you lose all of that innocence that she had.
That she has earlier on,
which provides, I think, a buffer from the things that she's experiencing. But by the time she's a teenager, she understands what's going on, and that's, I think, when she realizes, that's the really, you know, it's the climactic point where I think she realizes that if she doesn't fight for absolutely everything, she's going to be given nothing. You know, she's gonna repeat the same cycle as her mum. So they were quite harrowing to write, actually, those final scenes. But I think what I really hope readers take from it is that it's really hopeful. You know, that she never loses that fight and she never loses that spirit. Yeah. And ultimately, without giving anything away, I think it's a very hopeful ending, that Janie, you know, will build a beautiful life for herself in the end.
And it's a very unique heroine you have there. And how hard did you find it to get publishers interested in it? Because it's such an unusual story. You don't usually see these types of stories being told. It's like a kind of unknown world. I mean, you don't really read about this that often.
No, well, that's one of the reasons why I wrote it, was because I was, you know, I was a really avid reader as a council estate kid, always down the library, and I couldn't read books that I felt reflected my background, and so that's why I wrote it. I was actually quite fortunate that the road to publication was quite easy for me, and so I had... when it went out in submission with my agent, I had 2 publishers who were quite interested in it, and others who said nice things about it, which is so I kind of knew we were on the right track. And I think when I went to meet with Chatto and Windus, who are Random House and my publishers now, they said it's so unusual to hear a young woman's voice like this, you know, that sweary, not shying away from everything, in your face, and so I suspect that's what got them interested. And I'm very grateful for that, because they're a wonderful publisher to be with. I've been really lucky. And
I just have to say congratulations, because you've been longlisted, haven't you?
Yeah.
What's that for?
It's the Guardian First Book Award. So there's 11 titles on the long list. So not too many, and that's a combination of poetry, non-fiction, and fiction. I'm up against some big hitters, so I'm just very grateful to be longlisted.
Well, it definitely deserves to be up there.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations, honestly, it's a real achievement. And I love the heroine Janie, she really inspired me.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm going to tell everyone to get this one. This is Tony Hogan Bought Me an Ice Cream Float Before He Stole My Ma. It's kind of an unforgettable title.
Oh.
So, thank you.
Thank you.